hello. So first things first, I changed some camera settings around, so maybe better, maybe worse. I'm still learning, so I'm sure there will be a lot more changes to come on that end. But let's go ahead and get started with today's video, which is going to be another Norse mythology video. And in the last video about the tales of Odin, I mentioned that this video was going to be about a kidnapping and a marriage. So let's get started first with the kidnapping of Idun. And Idun, if you'll remember from the video on the Aesir gods, is the goddess of rejuvenation, and she keeps the gods immortal with fruits that endow immortality. So this tale is the kidnapping of her in order to obtain these fruits. So the tale actually begins with Odin, Honir, and Loki, and they're traveling through some mountains where food is scarce. Eventually, they come upon some oxen, kill one, and decide to eat it for dinner. However, when they're heating it up on the fire, they realize that no matter how long they're leaving it over the fire, the meat just isn't cooking. So eventually, a voice speaks to them from above, and it reveals itself to be an eagle. And the eagle says that it is keeping their meat from cooking using magic. However, he would agree to let the food cook if the gods would agree to give him some of the meat. The gods agreed to this, so the eagle then let the meat cook and chose some of the ox for himself after it had cooked. But Loki, being Loki, thought this was unreasonable as the eagle had chosen some of the best cuts of the ox for himself and likely more than his share. So in anger, he grabbed a stick and swung it at the eagle. The eagle swiftly took the branch in his talons and flew high into the sky, all while Loki remained holding on to it, in utter shock. The eagle revealed himself to be the giant Thjazi and agreed to let Loki down only if Loki agreed to bring Idun and her magic fruits. See, the giants had long been trying to defeat the gods in open battle, but the gods were just too strong. So Thjazi figured a smarter way to go about defeating them would be to rob them of the immortality that Idun and her fruits provided. Now, after arriving back in Asgard, Loki went looking for Idun. As is typical for Loki, he spun a tale and told her that he had found fruits even more amazing than hers. And he told her that they were growing right outside the gates of Asgard and that she should come with him and bring her fruits in order to compare the two to each other. Although Idun was skeptical, she just couldn't be challenged. So she grabbed a basket of her fruits and off they headed toward the forest. So upon arriving in the forest, she was captured by Thjazi, who was still in his eagle form. He took her to his home, Thrymheim, which means Thunder Home, and was located high among the mountain peaks in Jotunheim. Without Idun's magic fruits to ward off their aging, the gods began to feel themselves age, with their skin withering, their hair graying, and their energy waning. It didn't take long for them to hold council and discovered that the last known sighting of Idun had been when Loki was leading her from Asgard. They promptly seized him and threatened him until he spilled his guts. So after telling them of his ordeal with Thjazi, the gods told Loki that he had to rescue Idun or he would die. To accomplish this rescue mission, Freya lent him some magic hawk feathers that would allow him to transform into the shape of a hawk. So after shifting into the form of a hawk, he took off toward Thjazi's home. Upon arriving at Thjazi's home, he discovered that the giant was out, gone fishing. Loki quickly shifted Idun into the shape of an acorn and put her in his talons, and they took off toward Asgard. Thjazi arrived home not long after, discovered Idun missing, and shifted into his eagle form and flew off with haste toward Asgard after Loki and Idun. Thjazi was close on Loki's tail when coming within reach of Asgard. The gods, however, saw this chase and they built a fire that would be ready to light around the fortress. So once Loki and Idun had crossed the barrier, the gods lit the fire and it went ablaze immediately. It went ablaze so instantly that Thjazi had no time to react and no time to retreat, and so he perished in the fire. The next tale picks up where this one leaves off and has to do with Scotty, who is Thjazi's daughter. After her father went off after Loki and Idun, she awaited with growing concern. After seeing the blaze that would, unbeknownst to her, take his life, she grew even more concerned. Eventually she realized that he must have died and decided to take up arms against the gods who had killed him. So she readied herself for battle and took off toward Asgard. While she went for blood, this isn't exactly what would transpire. Heimdall raised the alarm upon her arrival, and the gods came out to meet her. Tired of bloodshed, they instead offered her reparations. So she refused their initial offer of gold, citing the wealth of her father that had now been passed down to her. Instead, she asked for a husband and for laughter. And as a sign of good faith, Odin took Thiazi's eyes and cast them into the sky as stars. As for laughter, many things were tried and many things failed. Eventually, the gods called upon Loki, the trickster, in an attempt to make Skadi laugh. So what he did was took a rope and he tied one end to a goat and one end to his testicles. And then a game of tug-of-war ensued. So every time the goat tugged, Loki would howl until eventually he collapsed into Skadi's lap. This is what finally elicited that elusive laugh from her. Now, the gods agreed to her terms of marriage, but only on the condition that she choose her husband based on only his feet. So a tarp was hung, and all the gods lined up, and Skadi went about choosing her husband. She chose the fairest looking feet, thinking they belonged to the most handsome of the gods, Balder. However, when she uncovered her eyes, she discovered that it was not Balder and instead was Njord. Instead of getting the most handsome of the gods, she got the weathered-looking god of the sea. She stated that she had been tricked, and that started the marriage off on the wrong foot from the beginning, yet still they were married. Skadi and Njord had to choose between living in Noatun, which is the home of Njord, or Thrymheim, the home of Scotty. The two places contrasted deeply, as one was icy and cold and one was warm and sunny. Njord and Scotty decided to compromise, however. So they spent the first 9 nights of their marriage in Thrymheim, which Njord heavily disliked because of the weather and the sounds of the wolves. He said the wolves sounded terribly compared to the swans to which he was accustomed. They spent the next 9 nights in Noatun, which Scotty heavily disliked because she said the sounds of the seabirds contrasted too heavily with the sounds of the wolves to which she was accustomed. So the two parted ways after this, although they did remain married. I can't say I blame them for parting ways, because if I was Njord and someone asked me to leave my warm sunny beach, I definitely wouldn't be doing it. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for sticking around, and I will see you in the next video to talk about one of Loki's 3 children, Fenrir the wolf. I'll see you then.